Hi, my name is Hannah Harris, and today I'll be giving my persuasive speech on how to educate your children about the dangers of kidnapping and how to avoid them at all costs. This will include some escape tactics, some preventable measures on the parent's side, as well as some proper communication that needs to happen about such a serious subject with such young children, because sometimes it can be a bit difficult to convey this message in a way that they can grasp it at such a young age. Close to 800,000 people are kidnapped each year in the United States alone. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children calculated this to about 2,000 kidnappings per day, which is absolutely unacceptable. Within this statistic, 203,000 of these kidnappings each year are within the family, meaning that the victims were kidnapped by someone they're related to. It just means we have to be that much more careful with who we surround our children with. One of the main reasons these kidnappings are successful for the kidnapper is because the victim is either unable to escape, or the victim did not initially know that they were in danger, so they did not know that they need to get themselves out of that particular situation. So today I'll be talking about the danger of being locked in the trunk of a car without the knowledge or ability to escape, and as well as the most important lessons that you can teach your children in regards to avoiding dangerous predators. Of course, the fact that kidnappings happen have nothing to do with the children. It's not their fault in any way. But, in today's world, we're not so sure what's going to happen. You need to be prepared at all times before it's too late. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to teach this life-saving information to your children as soon as they are old enough to understand it. All cars should have a release option from the inside of the trunk that will allow them to actually have a shot at survival and liberation. One of the main ways that children are abducted is that they're thrown in the trunk of a car, because this way no one can see them and they usually do not know how to get out. But before I get into the significance of the trunk release, it's important to first understand the tragic commonality of kidnappings that happen every day we don't even realize. Although nearly 2,000 children are abducted daily, very few of them meet the qualifications for a local or national news report. As little as 115 of those children qualify as a stereotypical kidnapping. The definition of that is as follows. These crimes involve someone the child does not know or someone of slight acquaintance who holds the child overnight, transports the child 50 miles or more, kills the child, demands ransom, or intends to keep the child permanently. 57% of these kidnappings end with a safe return home for the child. It's not a very high number. This needs to improve. Now, let's review the structure of a trunk, and more importantly, why your children should understand it too. In 2002, a mandate was released that requires all cars that have been manufactured since to have a glow-in-the-dark trunk release. Looks kind of like a switch, which allows you to open the trunk from the inside of the vehicle. This was originally included in the case of emergencies, but could ultimately be the difference between life and death in the event of an abduction. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to make sure that your children are aware of how to get out of a trunk. Simple information like this can save their life, because we never know when they may need to know it or know how to get themselves out of such a terrifying situation. And at such a young age, it's really easy to get panicked very fast, and knowing what to do in that situation in advance will help them to calm down. ABC News shared a story of a woman in Alabama who was abducted and thrown in the back of a trunk after being robbed. But because she was aware of the trunk release, she was able to jump out of the moving car and run into a nearby convenience store where she was able to get some help. If she did not know how to get out, she may have never made it out of that situation, may not have even made it out alive. In older cars where there is no trunk release installed, or in case of a malfunction, there are other options you can use to escape. The best decision in this situation would be to kick out the taillight so you can stick your hand out the window. Anyone that sees you will be able to call the police with a description of the car and the location, leaving the victim with a much higher chance at survival. Now, I'm going to share some of the biggest reasons that it's important to educate your children about kidnapping and how you can avoid it. First of all, you need to have a good sense of communication and understanding with your children about keeping track of them. Stephen Dowden shares that most kids who have been reported missing were solely because the parents had a misunderstanding with their children about where they were supposed to be at that time. Ultimately, the children were okay and never actually went missing. However, the parents' concerns were totally valid. If your child goes missing, definitely go look for them, and if you can't find them, of course, go get help. But this is why we need to have good understanding of where they are and a good way to get hold of them. 75% of abducted kids and teens are kidnapped by a family member. This is why it's so important that you don't let your children have contact with those who could cause them harm or that might even be capable of kidnapping. Even without specific proof, it's always better to be safe than sorry. This includes abusive fathers or mothers, other dangerous family members, suspicious neighbors, etc. Basically anyone that gives you a dirty gut feeling. It's always better to just keep them away from your children if you don't feel safe about it. There are a few simple ways that abductions can be prevented or things you can do to help find your children in case of an abduction. You should always keep your custody documents with you just to be able to prove that it's your child. You should have current photos of your children, so in case they were to go missing, you'd be able to have an accurate description of what they look like. Set boundaries of where they're allowed to go and who they're allowed to talk to. If you know there's specific places around town or specific people that you don't feel safe with them being around, let them know. Make boundaries, make it clear. They'll stay away. Don't post extremely personal information. It's kind of an obvious one, but people like this often use information they find on the media to go track down children. Never post stuff like that on the internet. Don't leave them unattended, especially at really young ages. Children tend to wander, makes them very vulnerable. Be careful with babysitters, run background checks, make sure you trust them before you leave your children alone with them. In conclusion, one of the most important and life-saving lessons you can ever teach your children is how to avoid, prevent, and get out of any situations related to abductions and potential danger from unknown people that approach them. It is never too early to start educating your children on this subject. The sad truth is, if something were to happen to the child in the event of procrastination of passing on this information, it's too late. There's not much you can do at that point. There is no way to be 100% sure that our children are totally safe everywhere they are, but we can educate them so that they will be less helpless and confused and even more confident than they would have been in the first place in the event of such a life-threatening situation as abduction. I hope this information was helpful and that you all can understand the importance of making sure that our children are safe and know how to be safe, how to prevent these kind of events, and how to get out of it in the case that it did happen. Thank you.